Do you expect companies to keep running servers forever? No, they can end support and turn off servers whenever they want. But they have to do it in a responsible way, like Gran Turismo Sport, Knockout City, Duelist, and so on. What about games that don't require a connection to the publisher or DRM servers, etc. when support ends to work? Nothing. Those kinds of games will be exempt from all of this. And that actually is most video games. Normally, companies dropping support for systems that old is pretty reasonable. So for the record, I don't think Steam gamers should be on XP, nor do I think any company should have to support old operating systems forever. That's not reasonable. And in truth, I don't think this particular act is that big a deal in the long term. But it's what this is a sign of that's going to take us into really bad territory. Okay, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I've never been completely on board with Steam. Oh, it's convenient, sure, and it's swallowed up PC gaming, but it doesn't have much in the way of recourse if something goes wrong. And I think we're seeing the very beginning of the end game of that here. See, I tend to look at things like Rip Van Winklewood. So take a game, any game, then imagine you fall asleep for 20 years. When you wake up, can you still play your game? Well, on the PC, almost every game prior to the comparison to Morrowind, saying people are still playing that game today. Well, here's the difference between Morrowind and Fallout 76. Morrowind doesn't cost Bethesda money to run. Every year, gamers continue to play it. So if you bought Morrowind 15 years ago and let it sit on a shelf this whole time, Bethesda didn't have to pay extra money for you to do that. If they run central servers, they do. Paying uptime fees and maintaining server clusters is not a force of nature. Doing nothing is a force of nature. So what I'm getting at is no matter how good their intentions are, they can't promise they'll keep a central server game going forever. It's an unrealistic standard. Oh, whoops. What's that doing there? That's not a Fallout game. Yeah, sorry about that. What they can do is give you the chance to run it forever, the way it was for every game for decades. Now, in reality, what you're proposing would require businesses to support their games forever. That's unreasonable. No, they wouldn't. In fact, I'm in favor of companies ending support for a game anytime they want. That's why an end-of-life plan is essential. If you're a company and you end support for your game, but then the customer still has a reasonable chance to play it after that, that's it. You're done. You don't have to support anything. What needs to stop is support being a requirement to play the game. That's what games as a service is. I think at one point you were saying that like I'm advocating the service should go on forever.
No, if I did, that was a mistake.
Okay, I just misspoke. Okay, that's fine.
Because I understand that you're okay with the minimum plan. I do.
Oh yeah.
I misspoke.
Yeah. In no sense, even if I wasn't okay with the minimum plan, I think no, you guys really need to pony up and bring out either the source code or a standalone client. At no point am I advocating for service go on forever. Not even conceptually.
If I said I misspoke. I understand that about your position.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. There's no good reason you shouldn't be able to continue playing an online multiplayer game even after support ends and the company's servers shut down. If that weren't true, I wouldn't be able to play Descent online with other people today. Now, would I? But I think if you were to ask your average gamer now if you could play online with other people with no support or company servers, they'd say no. That's just the way things are. So that propaganda has been successful. Now, I think at this point in time, most gamers still accurately believe that there's no good reason single-player games have to be online. But hey, this message from the company is a perfect example of trying to change those views. Bit by bit, maybe in 20 years, most gamers will believe you have to connect to company servers just to play a single-player game. It's just the way things are. This is ridiculous. You can't expect companies to keep running the servers forever. Let me be really clear here, guys. I am not now, nor have I ever advocated for that in any way. I think what's happening is the propaganda from the industry has been so effective that younger people literally don't understand how aspects of games work now. So let's go over this quick. I think the problem is some people see an online-only game and only see two options. The first is to host the game forever. Yeah, that is unreasonable and unrealistic. I agree. So the only other option they see is shut down the game forever. Well, if that's your entire worldview for online games, option 2 sucks, but it's the only realistic option, right? Oh, but wait, what's this? What's this? Option 3. Patch the game to enable local hosting. This. Some said Ubisoft could do whatever they wanted because of the license agreement. Others said Ubisoft was liable to provide the service forever, which is kind of insane. I mean, that's going farther than even I want. But most of them had no idea how to handle this. One clerk said they had never heard of someone make this kind of complaint before. Another one of them said it is unclear if these actions from the company are legally permitted. There is no clear legal regulation for this. A common misconception that comes up a lot, just real quick, I am not wanting companies to keep their servers up forever at all. Like, I want them to end support whenever they want, just to have an end-of-life plan in place, because some people misinterpret that.
To be clear on what your initiative is doing, you're not saying that having a connection to an online server is necessary, and you're not saying that they should support games indefinitely, because it could be impossible if something requires a server. It's just, if a game doesn't have to be connected, just to give the audience some option, some way to run it themselves, something other than losing access to it forever.
No, I'm going farther than that. I'm saying if you are selling a game, and of course they'll argue about what you're being sold also in various countries. If you're selling a game to the customer, then when you're done ending support, there needs to be a reasonable chance to run it in some form. That doesn't necessarily need to mean 100% of all features, especially if they was required like active support, that sort of thing. But there needs to be something, not just it's usually called a bricked copy of a game, whereas as in it doesn't fix the game so you can run it without their support. That's what you really want to say. It's always good to emphasize that you want to run it without their support. So we don't. Endless support has never been a goal of the campaign in any form. Just to shut it down responsibly is the thing. This paragraph is useless regarding what we're asking for, and they feel the need to double down, saying supporting old software is expensive. I guess good thing we were asking for publishers to patch their games so they can end support whenever they want. This paragraph, oh boy. I'm not trying to get companies to support stuff forever, even something like Steam, which probably isn't going away anytime soon. Mm-hmm. As long as you have the opportunity to get your stuff and keep it, that's the part that matters to me, No, in fact, I think that was a misunderstanding of what we were asking. We weren't asking for... We want companies to feel free to end support whenever they want. It's just we want the ending of that support to be done in a responsible way. Like for games, like there was a game recently called Knockout City where they had to shut down, but then they modified the game so people could continue running it without their support anymore. And unfortunately, that's the exception rather than the rule.
So the government also told us that companies selling games must provide clear information and allow continued access to games if they're sold on the understanding that they will remain playable indefinitely. I mean, might they ever do that, do you think? Put an expiry date on a game? I mean, it wouldn't help them with sales, would it?
Oh, no. In fact, I think it's very deliberately that information is left out because the majority of video games can work indefinitely. The majority of video games are not designed to fail like this. That is a deliberate decision made by game publishers. It is possible to design games to incorporate end-of-life plans without more difficulty than any other aspect of creating a video game. This is not speculation. Here are some examples of games that have done this already. All of these titles used to require an online connection to the publisher, and all of them had their support discontinued. Yet in each of these cases, when support ended, the game was modified to continue working while no longer requiring a connection to the publisher. It is important to emphasize that when a game is shut down properly, no further support is needed again. A common misconception is that we are seeking endless support from video game companies. This is not true at all. We are only seeking for support to end in a responsible way. However, the state of most online games today is very hostile to consumers. I had people email me saying that they thought if a game came on a physical disc, like The Crew, that meant the game would last forever. Now, some might push back against this and say it's unreasonable for companies to support a game forever, which I agree with. But you can't look at that in a vacuum, because remember, these games were also sold under unreasonable terms. And let's not forget, some games do have proper end-of-life plans, so those games do end up working forever. Based on my experience interacting with other gamers, I can tell you what I think is the answer to this question. You want to know how long the average customer thinks their game will last? Well, I'll tell you. They don't. I think the average customer doesn't even think about this. They're living in the here and now. This thought never even enters their head. So how the hell do we measure that? Because let's not forget, the vast majority of video games do work indefinitely. Because if you purchased a microtransaction as a good, then the game is made unplayable, well then you just lost your goods. This would not require publishers to give up any of their intellectual property rights, give up their source code, though that one would still be nice. It wouldn't require endless support. They can end it any time they want as far as we're concerned. They wouldn't need to host servers, though they would have to either patch out that requirement or else allow customers to host them privately. Assume any liability for what customers do with their copies of games. And finally, nothing about this initiative would have any impact on publisher business practices while the game is being supported. In other words, publishers can continue doing whatever they want as long as you get to keep your game. It amazes me when some people say that's going too far in favor of the consumer. Though to be fair, that's probably not most Europeans.
Companies like Ubisoft, if they want to sell their video games in Europe, they would need, if you want to enter that market, you have to make it so that that video game is playable if you want to stop supporting the server into the future. Whatever it is, if you want to make a binary executable available, make it open source, don't require connection server, whatever you need to do to ensure that a gamer can continue to play that game from now until the end of time, you need to do that. So please, if you are in the EU, sign this. Mr. Rosscott gives you all the instructions you need on the website here, StopKillingGames.com, and you can also follow how this is going on his YouTube channel. I highly suggest you subscribe to it. I've watched his videos, and I would put him up there with Mr. Steve Burke from Gamers Nexus. He's one of those people on YouTube that's not, a PR shill for large companies, or he's not a shill for affiliate marketing that is just trying to get you to buy shit that you don't need so that he can make money for himself or be able to hobnob with the executives at these large companies. He doesn't care about his relationship with large companies. He cares about you. He cares about his fellow gamers. He cares about the people. He doesn't care about...
Do we have to make the developers keep these servers running indefinitely? It's like, no, not necessarily. No,
not at all. No. 100% no. That's our answer.
Yeah. And it's like, there are just so many different factors to come into it. But, it sounds like you guys have got a lot of it ironed out. So that's great to hear.
Because I've been seeing people looking at this initiative saying, oh, you just want them to keep the servers running in perpetuity, which I don't know how they ever even came to that conclusion, but that's been a takeaway I've been seeing online.
Oh, I think it's because that's all they know. Either the game is run by the company and it works, or it's shut down and that's it. I think there's not an awareness. There are options to patch it or release local, or make server emulators or have local hosting, that sort of thing.
We spoke of pirate software earlier. Like, I think he did. There was a couple things he missed the point on, saying, you can't force developers to run servers forever. That's not what you're asking for. But one of the things...
I agree with that point.
Yeah. One of the things...
Well, actually, this looks like they would have to keep the servers up indefinitely. This is like the Consumer Center saying this. We're not sure. We need to... And that's not even what we were asking for. And then another one just said, I think in Germany, said in no uncertain terms, translated, there is no clear legal regulation for this. So nobody knew what to do. And we just had dumb luck that France's consumer agency had a provision where you could complain about that worldwide. They had a whole form and department for that. Now, you might probably not going to get a refund that way, but you could, if you think this practice is illegal and you just want to report on the company, they have an option for that. Like, it was designed for tourists, that sort of thing. So but yeah, even though it might seem like the EU has uniform laws and this stuff, in practice, it might not very much at all. I don't think it's reasonable for companies to host games indefinitely. And it's the ones that just keep going decade after decade. Those are kind of the exceptions. And it's usually a better experience when they support it, but that's not what we're asking. We're asking for end-of-life plans. So in other words, if you're starting this game, you know it depends on your server, and you know as soon as you shut that down, it's going to be unplayable. Have a plan so that people who paid for it can continue running it.
Right, and I don't think that's an unreasonable request. I could go back and play, I guess, Rainbow Six Vegas 2 with my friends if I have their IP and I can directly...
Yeah, exactly. This is possible. You can retain games that you like, even online-only ones. And it doesn't have to involve the company hosting the server forever. And you ask any kind of seasoned programmers, they will tell you this is possible. It's just I've compared this before to car manufacturers not wanting... In the 60s, there was law being proposed to make seatbelts mandatory to put in the cars. And car manufacturers fought that up and down. But then when they lost, the overall work and cost was pretty minimal, especially as time went on. They were tooled for that. And I think it's a similar analogy.
I see cases where there might be games that are live service, they go offline, and there just aren't enough players who have an interest in continuing to play it, that the cost of hosting a server privately would be more than that person who's hosting it would be able to recoup from people wanting to play on that server. And in which case, the game is essentially dead, even if it's still available to experience, right?
Well, yeah, in fact, that's a good point, because that is a common point of confusion that we have. We're not advocating companies keep the servers running indefinitely. They can end it whenever they want. It's just we're trying to go for responsible shutdowns. So let's say you did have to connect to the publisher when they were supporting it. Once they end, then they might patch it or release some server code or something along those lines so that you can continue running it with private hosting. It's not just dropping support, because of course manufacturers should be allowed to drop support. Like, we're not asking for endless support, but to go out of your way to make it so that people can't continue running it. I mean, that's ridiculous. Some classics we saw the first time. There is no requirement in UK law for software companies to support older versions of their products. Yeah, good thing we're not asking for that, either this time or last time. Oh look, again! It may be difficult and expensive for businesses to maintain support for old software. Yes, hence why we're not asking for that. Companies make decisions on the high running cost of maintaining older servers for games with declining user bases. Yeah, decisions like robbing customers? Yeah, we understand that part. So between these two answers, that's what? 6 times now they've told us it's expensive for businesses to support old software? Exactly how many times do we need to tell them this isn't what we're asking for and have never asked for? Now, the first time they did this, I thought they just misunderstood, but seeing them wheel this out again, now I'm thinking they have to be doing this on purpose. Because we went out of our way to word it. The news cycles are way ahead of me and are parroting their response uncritically. So they're largely successful in subverting the narrative. So now even more people think we're asking for endless support. Just one after the other report this like the issue is settled. And wait, what? A disjointed statement that seems to misunderstand the core issues raised? The issue with this statement is that it missed the point of the petition entirely? Oh my god! It's an actual journalist! He looks chill as hell, too. Well, congratulations, Dual Shockers! You did the impossible and actually reported on this accurately! I swear to God in this campaign, it feels like I'm explaining alien technology to people when I say we're not asking for endless support. At least one games media site gets it. I admit, having all your work misrepresented across the internet isn't great for morale. But what can you do? Oh, the biggest myth we get out of all of this is that we're asking for endless support from publishers, so this is a complete fantasy. That's not it at all. We're trying to have end-of-life plans, so they can end support whenever they want, but then you still have a reasonable chance of running the game, and there's
a means of accessing it. If it's a multiplayer game, a means of setting up servers, ideally.
Yeah, let's say the server can't run on consumer hardware. Well, then they could release the server once they're done with support on whatever it does run on. Then the consumer at least has a reasonable chance to make it work, you know? And the other thing is, some people see this as just completely impossible because of existing license agreements. Whereas our focus is to try to kind of break the cycle on this. So we're primarily talking about future games.
Yeah.
Where they have, and if this is already under law, well, then those license agreements could get sorted out at the game's conception. You know, once they've... Well, our first and foremost criticism that we ever get is you can't expect companies to support games forever. Right. And it was never about that. It's not about that, never was, but they can end it any time they want. We're all in favor of that. Mm-hmm. Like another common criticism is that, well, you know, you're not actually, well, it might be different in Australia. It hasn't been tested specifically, but you're not buying a good or a service. You're buying a license, and the license says that they can end this game at any time, so you should have known better and blah, blah, blah. Well, in the United States, that's pretty much how it's going to go. There's a lot of legal precedent that backs it up. In the European Union, it's a more like kind of kid gloves approach to taking that, where, again, some of the specifics, okay, they're giving you this license, but that license contains terms like, we can change the terms of our license. That'd be possible for existing games. But, you know, they need to have a developer build also. So from a technical perspective, it can be as simple as just, okay, release the end of life dev build as the end of life version, and we're done. You know, we don't have to touch it anymore.
Yeah, because I think that's another, you know, to be fair, like another misconception I see is this idea that, you know, the developer or the publisher is then obligated to continue supporting a game they don't want to support anymore in perpetuity. But your initiative has not got that in mind, from what I understand, right?
That is the biggest misconception we have. We are not asking for that in any capacity. They can end the game whenever they want. We just want a reasonable chance for the player to continue playing it without their support from that point onward. And the thing is, most video games are already compliant on that. You know, game studios go down all the time, but you can still play your game. Or the most common misconception that they think we are asking for endless support, because, yeah, that is unreasonable. I'm in full agreement on that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm confused what they're asking. The extend their services without drop. Oh, you mean like we're talking about like the run it indefinitely scenario?
Yeah.
I mean, no, I don't think they should. I don't think they should be compelled to run. I mean, I think there should be like a reasonable, like if they're shutting it down, I think there should be a reasonable time frame to get your game. Like if, like, let's say you have a bunch of games on Steam or GOG and they were going to shut down. Well, they should give you like 30 days or 90 days or something to give you a chance to grab all your stuff, and then it's under your custody and not theirs, and they can shut it down clean. But no, I'm against I'm against requiring endless service of any company, because I don't, even if they wrote that in the EULA, because I don't think that's a reasonable request. You know, I mean, I guess if they did put lifetime access, but in those cases, or the way supposed to work is lifetime refers to the life of the company usually. The trajectory for gaming is so bad, we have absolutely nothing to lose. I mean, how does gaming get worse than publishers destroying your games? We've already had a glimpse of the future, too. It's history now, but when Microsoft unveiled the original Xbox One, their plans showed us what game companies have in store for us. A surveillance device necessary to use the system that collects biometric data off you, you needing to connect to the company every 24 hours or else you're locked out of your system, and when they eventually end support, your entire game collection becomes unplayable. Welcome to the future. Now, soon afterwards, they realized they came in too hot and had to walk some of that back, but the industry has been taking the boiling frog approach since. This is where we're already headed if we don't do anything on this. Now, I can't say if this campaign will be successful or not, but what I can say is if people put in the minimum effort, then we are going to get answers on this and close the... The thing is, if you hate it so much, one, either just say, I don't want to talk about this again, don't bother me with it, and save yourself the trouble of making 2 videos on this and just be done with it, you know? Or if you really hate it and you're confident of your stance, you know, bring me on, you know, trash it right to my face. I mean, that's the most effective way of discrediting somebody. Do it right in front of a big audience to show everyone. I suspect part of him knows that it might not go well for him if he were to do that. Because, look, I've been at this for years. You're going to have to work at it to come up with an argument I haven't heard before. So I'm pretty well versed in this, and that might not go well if he just wants to trash talk it and just move on. So I have enough confidence in my stance and being able to explain it that I'm totally willing to, you know, discuss this on a public stage with opposition. You know, I mean, I kind of want a sizable audience because, again, my focus is on getting those signatures. But I think my side of it is such a strong stance, I can win people over on it. And maybe Pirate Software knows that too, and that's why he doesn't want to talk to me. Again, I can't claim to know what's going on inside his head. So it's, yeah, I will say this. If I had to argue against my stance on it and against me, I wouldn't want to, because it's a rough, it's not a popular counter argument, because you basically have to argue that it's better that companies be allowed to do kind of whatever they want on this issue. And my email is rosswscott@gmail.com. See, my purpose in this is not to trash talk Thor. I mean, I'll be honest. I'll say what happened. It's not to trash talk Thor or Pirate Software. It's to campaign for the movement, because I still want this initiative to pass. So if I can at least mention that to a lot of people who might not have heard of it and they're getting some entertainment on the other topic, great. You know, so that's where I stand on it.